How's it going, everybody, and welcome to the Wrestling is Awesome podcast with your host, Alec Pecano, and co host, Bradley Walker. Let's jump right into it and get started with Raw review. That was an interesting first episode of Raw on Netflix.
I agree. I think one of the highlights is it was cool to see Triple H. Obviously, he is the CEO. Come out and do what he did, announcing everything. I think he's the right man for the job. I think we've discussed that on past episodes, but I think he's in the right position. You know, the most shocking thing to me about the whole, everything went smooth for everyone except for Hulk Hogan. I, Yeah, that's the one guy I think that probably didn't enjoy the night because everyone else seemed like, well, unless you lost your title, but it is what it is. But Hogan was the one who I thought was the one that got booed by the crowd in California. I mean, I understand why he did, and it is what it is, but they'll let you know if they hate you.
Yeah, that simple and easy like that. Um, I'm gonna say this. I'm actually happy Liv lost her title finally. It was time. That feud with her and Rhea was getting very stale. Very. And I wonder what they're going to do now with Rhea. I have a couple feuds for her that we will talk about later on because we're also going to go over that. But I I want to know what you think about the whole. I think it was a waste of a match between Drew and Jey Uso.
I agree, but I think him coming out was pretty freaking cool. How he got the whole crowd involved and to see both Michael Cole and Pat McAfee on the announce table, and they were out of breath. If you watched, I watched the show and then I watched the replay. I'm like, wow. I mean, I just imagine like hey, that's me and Alec right there. Like we're out of breath as we're announcing something. But no, I mean, honestly, I mean, obviously, I think the Royal Rumble's coming up. That's the next big pay per view. John Cena made an announcement about how he wants to win it. I hope when WrestleMania comes, do let him have the belt and they let him run with it for a little bit and then drop it. But he breaks Ric Flair's record, whatever, and Rick happens to be in person. But I do agree. But I think that was a waste of a match with Jimmy Uso, and that should have been a pay per view
No,
match.
Jay. It was
I mean,
Jay. Jay.
Jay, not nothing against being on Netflix and all that stuff, but I think that should have been a pay per view match. Those two have a rivalry anyway that's brewing. So yeah, I mean that's my opinion on it.
I feel the exact same way. And I'm going to say this before we continue. If anybody wants to get involved in the show, at the bottom of the screen, there is two different ways you can get involved. And they're at the bottom of the screen. But I agree with you. I feel like that Drew versus Jey Uso should have been either pay per view or it should have been the final episode of Raw before Netflix. But let's rewind to the beginning of the show after Triple H. The Rock comes out and something seems fishy.
He did a
I
180.
don't buy that all of a sudden he's a face. I don't believe that at all.
No, I agree with you, but I think, and I watched the next night. I just watched a YouTube clip before I came on with you on NXT, and he said he's 20 steps ahead, so he already has this planned out of what he wants to do. And when we talk about future rival, future
Feuds.
in the future feuds. I do have one in there that I'm going to talk about that, but no, I don't know. He said on NXT, he was like, "Hey, why are you being so hard on Cody?" And then he goes, "Now you're being nice." Well, the fans go, "Well, we don't want you to do either." Well, what do you want him to do? I mean, that he is the final boss. That's his title now. But yeah, I the whole thing with, hey Cody, you've been carrying the company for a year.
Yeah, that
Congratulations. And it's
just
like, now wait a minute. You were trying to stop him from winning the belt.
for
at
one, and
WrestleMania.
two, you were also trying to tell him, look, when I come back, I'm taking that off of you.
Correct. Yeah.
And the second thing that seemed fishy is when he gave Roman the Ula Fala.
Yeah. Yeah.
How he hugged him and said congratulations. Something's fishy. Very fishy about that. And
yeah, I agree. There's something behind the scenes that we're not getting yet, or me or you haven't done enough research on it yet to get it, or enough. I'm sure in the next few weeks we'll get what his plan is, because there's got to be something going on, either with Solo, or Fatu, or somebody.
Well, you know what? I saw something on social media. Somebody mentioned that when The Rock came out after Solo lost, that The Rock looked at Solo and mouthed the words, "You failed." So I'm wondering if, and nobody's brung this up yet, but I've seen it from other people that do podcasts about wrestling like us, that maybe Jacob Fatu turns on Solo.
Could be.
And he takes Tongaloa and Tamatanga with him. And then Solo has nobody left and he goes back to the OG.
I would think, but or maybe just that case too, where he has The Rock in his back pocket, meaning that again, we all were supposed to get The Rock and Roman Reigns last year at WrestleMania, right? That was the whole thing. And Cody and Seth said, "No, we're not doing that. We're not playing that book." And I think that match is going to happen this year. I really honestly believe The Rock is going to screw Roman somewhere down the line. He's going to piss him off, and then it's going to be him and The Rock in either the second night main event or the first night or the match before the main event at WrestleMania on night 1 or night 2. But I have a funny feeling in the back of my mind that that's what's going on. I could see Jacob Fatu leaving because Fatu's been just like Solo was to Roman, right? He was the bodyguard, right? And after a while, you get sick of that duty, and you're like, okay, you know, I've had enough of this. And Fatu is a loose cannon. I mean, we saw that.
Yes.
At War Games. So he's a loose cannon, but so are the Tonga brothers. They're loose cannons too. So I'm curious to see now that Roman has the Ula back. And did you see that Solo came out, I think, like on SmackDown and said, "Hey, if I win, I want you to put the Ula on me, and then you become my wife, man." That would have been kind of freaky if Solo would have won, and that would have happened. To see him switch over and be Solo's wise man, that'd be interesting for Paul Heyman. I know Heyman was scared, you know what, when he was in the ring with Sikoa by himself. So because the last time he went through the announce table, but yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing I don't think people realize is Paul Heyman's always been a heel.
Uh-huh.
So, and nobody's mentioned this. I'm a little, something seems off with Paul Heyman. I understand he's a wise man, but what if we come to learn with Paul Heyman? When he finds his next big thing, he turns on the person he's been a client that's been his client. Look at Brock Lesnar. Look at Cesaro and Jack Swagger. CM Punk. And people are out there saying, oh, Heyman's going to turn heel on Roman and go back to CM Punk. I don't see that.
No, because both of them are faces right now. So that would make no sense.
I see him turning heel. And I know Braun Breaker is not a heel or a face. I could see him teaming up with Braun Breaker.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing on Raw that didn't make sense to me is I thought American Made was on SmackDown. All of a sudden they're back on Raw.
I'm wondering, but if because of the Netflix thing that they were allowing crossovers. I don't know. That's just my
American Made was on Raw, but then you saw Gable go over to SmackDown and have a promo battle with Cody.
Right. Yes.
So I'm wondering if that's one of the factions / people that's going to transfer over to SmackDown is American Made, which that would make a lot of sense because they've done everything they could do on Raw.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, and I've heard this thrown up by many other wrestling content creators on TikTok, on YouTube, about a certain someone in NXT that just lost their university because of a name that I'm not going to mention until later that did hurt Big E. But what did you think about the main event between Drew and Seth?
Oh, you mean CM Punk and Seth Rollins?
I mean, yes, CM Punk.
Good. That Bud, and I know it's early. I know it's just January 8th. I know we have, 11 months from now when we can come back and talk about this, but may have already set the standard for match of the year. Hands down, it may have already set the standard for match of the year. And one of my notes I did too. I like the fact that CM Punk eating donuts in the press conference. How cool was that, dude? how cool was that to him with the donut thing? That was cool.
Yeah.
I'll get back to the Rollins match. The other cool thing was seeing Undertaker with Rhea Ripley after she won the belt. That was cool too.
Yes, it was.
That match, dude, may go down as an early standard for match of the year. Obviously, we know that those two don't like each other. We know the history between those two.
Let's say this. I don't think this feud is over.
No, I was just about to say that. Don't be surprised if it's at the Rumble, if it's at SummerSlam or WrestleMania. Somewhere down the road, these two are going to meet again, and it may be for gold.
I'm going to make a bold prediction right now. Seth Rollins will turn heel within the next 3 months.
I agree with that.
Because you can already see some characteristics of him becoming more heelish than he. And it's time for him to turn heel. I liked him as a face, but it is time for him to be a heel. And there's nothing nobody can say to convince me otherwise. I'm sick of this whole Monday night, whatever he calls himself right now.
Right.
He needs to turn heel. Triple H, if you're listening, turn Seth Rollins heel. Seth Rollins did some of his best work. If you go back and look at Raw in 2015 after he left the Shield, that was when Seth was doing his best work. And that's when I hated him the most. Because of the slimy underhanded tactics he would use to win matches. And that's when, I mean, I'm starting to come back around on Roman and be a Roman fan again. But that I was a diehard Roman and Dean Ambrose fan in 2015 after the Shield broke up. And I could not stand the Authority. And we, as we know, the Authority's probably never going to come back.
No,
At least I hope. I hope it doesn't. And if it does, I hope it's with people that actually, not to say Triple H didn't know what he was doing with the Authority, but the original plan. And then we can get back to talking about the Raw review. But the original plan, and I saw this like last year, the original plan, it wasn't for Seth to be the one to turn on the Shield. It was for Roman.
Yeah.
But Roman refused and said, no, I'm not stabbing my brothers in the back.
Yeah. And I think everything too, Bud, with what's going on outside the ring with Vince, I highly doubt we'll see either Shane or Stephanie anytime soon.
Well, we did see Stephanie at WrestleMania.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, but I mean, with everything going on with her dad,
I don't think you see Shane. I think,
yeah,
and this is, we don't really talk about AEW on the podcast, but I think, and people keep saying, oh no, this is not going to happen. Shane's not going to AEW. I think eventually he buys AEW from Tony Khan. And that's all I'm going to say about AEW, because we don't like talking about that company. But, and then Drew, what's next for Drew? Is he going to keep, I suppose he's going to keep going after the OG bloodline?
Well, now, Bud, that I think Solo lost to Uafala, don't be surprised if that doesn't start now. Because, Drew came out and said, hey, when everything is done, me and you still have some stuff to figure out. And I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, yeah, because Solo cost him in Cardiff in 2023.
That's what I'm. So don't be surprised if they don't flip that. And because, I mean, he got Jay. He got
he hasn't got Jimmy yet.
Hasn't got Jimmy yet.
Or as people like to call him, Himi Uso.
But
don't ask why. I
have a funny feeling that they'll skip Jimmy and Roman and it'll go to Solo, because I think those two would make a good feud moving forward. I mean, again, I know we're talking about feuds later on, but I think that would be something you could see moving forward.
I do have to say this. Raw review's over. We can briefly talk about, I do have to give Solo his flowers. When he first started this whole tribal chief gimmick for the new bloodline, I would put the TV on mute when he would talk, because he was atrocious. I give him his flowers, though. He has improved a lot when it comes to talking on the mic and doing promos.
I think Roman Reigns has too. He wasn't so good either when he
when he was after he broke away from the Shield, no. But now we're going to get into our WWE awards for 2024, and I will let you have the honors of going first.
Okay, so my male star of the year, I mean, come on, it's got to be the American Nightmare. Come on now, he finished his story. How would you not put him in that category? Female star is Rhea Ripley. I mean, she went through so much, having the belt, getting with Judgment Day. Judgment Day gets rid of her and Damian Priest.
Well, she was forced into Judgment Day by Edge.
Right, correct.
Which now he goes by Cope.
Yeah,
which
because
is
in AEW. But yeah, the feud of the year, it's got to be Rhodes and Reigns. I mean, come on now, leading up to that has to be the one. And I changed my breakout star of the year. I was gonna say LA Knight, but I got to go with Jimmy Uso. I mean, come on now. I mean, main event, man. He gets the crowd
you
involved.
mean Jay?
Jay, I keep saying Jimmy. Dang it, I keep saying Jimmy. Yes, Jay Uso is who I meant to say. So that was my
And
change with that one. Yeah.
and then who's your female superstar of the year?
Oh, that's got Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley by far. Absolutely.
Okay, so my superstar, male superstar of the year is Jey Uso.
Okay.
For obvious reasons. Obviously, he gets the crowd involved all the time. And now Jimmy and Roman have come around kind of on the whole yeet. Because Jimmy Uso's thing used to be no yeet.
Right.
The feud of the year for me, I'm sorry, it's not Cody and Roman for me. It is Punk and Drew.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
The promo battles they had. I'm sorry, but Punk just decapitated Drew on the mic. And their promo battles they had. My female superstar of the year, and she just won the women's title on SmackDown. Tiffany Stratton. My breakout star of the year is Jey Uso.
Yeah, I would.
Obvious, for obvious reasons. Now we get to future champions, and again, I will give you the honors of going first.
Future champions. So let's look at this. So right
And
now,
we're starting NXT and then working our way down to the main roster.
NXT. Okay. I didn't get NXT, so that was my fault on that, guys. So my fault. I didn't get NXT. I didn't think about that. So that was my problem there. So I don't have one because I didn't research NXT. I told Alec that I would research that moving forward. So I dropped the ball on that one, guys. Sorry about that. But going to the main roster, you have Cody Rhodes right now. I just don't know how much longer they're gonna keep the belt on him, and he's got the whole thing with Kevin Owens coming up, and we know someday down the road Randy Orton will be back, and I think that future feuds might be Owens and Randy Orton. That was one of my feuds I had, but you know, I would have to say the future of that belt. I think CM Punk. I don't know why I say that, but I really think that that's going to be the way they go. And I think that, Seth Rollins will be the heel in that whole equation with Punk.
How many times have we said Seth's going to turn heel now? 3?
That's 3 times. Yeah, it's definitely going to happen now, buddy, because if they listen to us, it's definitely going to happen. But let's see. So there's another. Oh, so Gunther holds the belt, right? The other one,
the World Heavyweight Championship. Yep.
Okay. So that one, and I'm gonna make sure I say this right. Jey Uso will get his first singles outside. I know he won the Intercontinental Championship last year, obviously, but I think he works up to that too, and they take the. But see, there's another thing too. Gunther and Cody are hard to take the belts away because they've held him so long, and it's so.
You know what? I'll say this.
Okay.
If it's not Jay that takes it away, I will give you mine later. But personally, I think they're saving up for, and I might get called crazy for this, Ludwig Kaiser to take the belt off Gunther.
That would make sense too. I know they are teammates or used to be, so I wouldn't be surprised. That would not shock me one bit.
Both the women's titles.
I think Rhea can. She just seems that they just. I mean, they had lived with it for a while. You might throw Bailey into that conversation, maybe. And I think Tiffany Stratton's another one that's going to hold the belt for a while because she did the one thing that I don't think, and one of my other future feuds too was Jackson Stratton. But I think that she did the right thing finally. Like she screwed over, she had help, and then she cashed in and won the belt. So good for her. Good on her for waiting for the right time to cash in. But with the women, I think the two that are the current champs stay that way for the rest of the year. Let's see what's the who the
Tag
United States
titles.
tag titles. Who are the tag? It's
War
DIY.
Raiders and DIY right now.
War Raid and DIY. Okay, because that's right. There's two different belts. Well, I would say the Usos, but if Jay is holding the belt, I don't think they're gonna have double belts, so that won't work.
Yeah, you never know.
The New Day is they can't even talk without the crowd booing them. So I mean, the only way you could really stick it to the crowd is if you put belts on them. Maybe, possibly the New Day. Yeah, I have a funny feeling too that the Wyatt Six, somebody from that faction will break away and be a tag team. I mean, that would be pretty cool to see Uncle Howdy and those guys with belts because that would be to carry on the legacy there. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And then what about SmackDown? Tag titles on SmackDown.
Who are the champs there, bud?
DIY.
DIY. So that's Ciampa and who's his tag team partner?
Ciampa and Gargano.
Gargano. And Gargano's wife is also in WWE too, right?
She is. She's in the whole storyline with Nia and Tiffany.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something after we go over our title thing about DIY. I think there's a certain group that might reunite. You just have to wait. I'm gonna leave you on a cliff until we're done with our future title holders.
I was gonna say I'll stick with DIY because I don't know if Gargano and Ciampa could be or solo wrestlers. I think they make a good tag
They
team.
were on NXT and Ciampa.
Okay.
Both of them did really good. Ciampa was the better one.
Okay. So I'll go with that. There's the tag team title.
And then you have the US and Intercontinental.
The United States Championship, it goes back to LA Knight. Him and Shinsuke, that's a future rivalry too, or a future feud. But it's got to go back to LA Knight. I mean, Shinsuke this is like, I think the Shinsuke that we all wanted to see. The ruthless heel that we all wanted to see. And now finally, and I don't know if Vince McMahon had something to do with this, but I think Shinsuke finally
spoiler alert, he probably did.
Finally showing
he likes to ruin all the good things we have in WWE. Sorry, Vince, but it's truth.
Yeah, I think he's showing his true colors, but I think LA Knight gets that back. But that belt might go back and forth between those two. The Intercontinental,
and maybe Carmelo Hayes.
Could be Carmelo Hayes. The Intercontinental Champion is who currently?
Braun
Breaker. And we talked about him earlier, how he really isn't a heel or a face, and
he's a tweener.
It's interesting that he comes from the Steiner clan. I mean, his uncle is Scott Steiner, I think, or is
yes,
uncle, yeah. They're Rick and Scott are brothers.
And apparently, there's another Steiner that's getting into wrestling. Braun Breaker's brother. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I heard that. I watched an interview during a college football game, and they were interviewed because I think, did they get inducted into the Hall of Fame recently, or am I just
a couple years back?
A years back, okay. But I don't. Again, if you take the belt off of Braun Breaker, then you got to put him in the championship. You got to put him in.
Which I think down the road they will revisit, because you saw they were teasing Braun Breaker versus Gunther or Gunther.
Gunther. Yeah, I can't see him losing the belt unless they make him a run at the big gold. So I'm gonna
Well,
stick with
you'll
Braun
see
Breaker.
in a second who I have him losing the belt to. It's somebody
Okay.
that needs the belt back to complete their. And there's two options. I
Oh,
picked
I know
the
who you're
second one.
referring to. I know who you're referring to. I know exactly who you're referring to. And then so now who does that left?
Women's
Who?
IC and United States Championship.
So the IC title is being held by who?
It's nobody yet. The finals are next week, and it's
Okay.
Lyra Valkyria and can't remember who she's facing. But I'd
And
love to see her. Actually,
win.
I'm not going to spoil it. Yeah, I'm not going to spoil who I am. And then the women's U.S. champ, which right now is Chelsea Green.
I could see Chelsea holding on to it because, again, what she's gone through. So I can't imagine them taking it off of her real fast. So
And here's another bold prediction. Until they turn Piper Niven against Chelsea Green.
Well, who speaking of Chelsea Green, wasn't Piper Niven was in a match against some girl this past Friday night on SmackDown?
Misha.
Yes, I would be surprised if she's not in the title run coming up this year either. Going after Chelsea as another one.
And then you have the last one is you have the women's tag titles.
And that's
which right now is Bianca and Naomi.
Trying to think of who.
The only credible tag team I could see taking it from them is Unholy Union. And yes, I just spoiled who I have winning the women's tag titles.
No, I'll take that, bud, because I don't know too many of the women's tag teams that.
Well, you had Kaden and Katana, but they're down on NXT again. And they said they're gonna be there for a while, so I'm guessing that's one of the teams that got transferred over to NXT. But let me get to mine. So I'm going to start in NXT.
Okay.
NXT title. I had Obafemi, but he won the NXT title last night. So that kind of put a wrench in that, which I think that means Trick's maybe got one more feud left on the NXT roster, then he's getting called up. Okay. So the person I have taking the belt off of Oba is Josh Briggs, who is currently, he's in a group with Shawn Spears right now. Also formerly known as Ty Dillinger.
Okay.
So that's one. The NXT women's title is currently held by Julia, and I have her losing that to Stephanie Vicare. I think that's how you say it. And I also have Stephanie Vicare winning the women's North American title. The NXT tag titles are held by Fraxium right now, which I think something's going to happen eventually with them where they either Nathan Frazier or Axiom stabs the other one in the back. And I think when that happens, I think Hank and Tank are going to win the NXT tag titles. NXT North American title is going to be, and I'm probably going to get laughed at for this, because there's people that think this guy should not be anywhere near a title. Ridge Holland. Because of what he did to Big E. That's probably why people think he shouldn't be near a title. I disagree. I don't like Ridge Holland, but this is some of the best work he's done since breaking away from Sheamus and Pete Dunne, or Butch. Which, spoiler, I do have Pete Dunne winning a title. Now we get to the main roster. And the World Heavyweight Champion I have is CM Punk. I think Punk is going to win the World Heavyweight Championship at some point. WWE champ, he gets it done. He wins number 17. You can't see him. John Cena. Then the IC title. Since I have Cena winning his 17th World Championship, that means I have to have Sheamus win the IC title.
Only one he hasn't won.
Yep. The US title is, and don't attack me for saying this, Pete, don't call me Butch Dunne. I think Pete Dunne wins the US title because they put him over on SmackDown. Well, no, he's on SmackDown right now, but he's nowhere to be found. Then you've got the tag titles, and I think the Usos win the tag titles over on Raw at some point from the War Raiders. I do think the War Raiders, they do defend the titles more, and I do think they're going to get a long run, and then eventually the Usos will beat them on SmackDown. And this one's going to shock some people because they've gotten really close, but they've gotten screwed over many times. The Street Profits. And then we've got the women's IC title. And I think it's going to be Lyra Valkyria that wins that. And then we've got U.S. champ, a women's U.S. champ, Michin. I think Michin's going to be the one to beat Chelsea Green. And then we've got the two women's titles. First, I think Tiffany's going to hold the title until Mania, and she's going to get beat by Charlotte. Because you got to think about it. Who did Charlotte Flair feud with for a little bit when she was over on NXT for a short period of time?
Tiffany Stratton.
And then I think Rhea, and we're heading toward this. I think Rhea loses the title at Mania 2 to a returning Becky Lynch.
I was gonna say that would be the one that no one's talked about, but yes, I would agree with you on that one.
And if I had to throw a heel turn in here, I think that the Street Profits, I know their faces right now, but I feel like that run has staled out. Them as faces, I think they need to turn heel. And I understand Triple H likes long-term storytelling, but you can't have that with every single story. And that's what some people are annoyed with by Triple H, is the fact that he likes to
stay with one thing too long.
Yeah. Okay, so, and you can tell me what you think of this. I think this was a faction on NXT with Johnny Gargano, Candice LeRae, Indy Hartwell, and Austin Theory. The Way. Now, you would have to find somebody to replace Indy Hartwell because she got released. But I think that we could see sometime in 2025 The Way reunite with Candice LeRae, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, Austin Theory, and a fifth member to be named. Maybe Alexa Bliss, maybe somebody from NXT like Roxanne Perez. But what would you think about that? What's your
that would be great. I mean, Alexa Bliss is due to come back. I don't know what capacity.
That's the one we never mentioned.
And
for winning a title.
I was just about to say that, but why, if you want to bring her back at the right time, the Rumble would be the right time to do that. Now, the question is, when you bring her back,
what does she come back as? Did she come back as the goddess? Or does she come back as the character she was before Bray passed away?
There's the $1 million question.
Was unhinged Alexa Bliss.
Unhinged
Alexa Bliss, which I'm going to say this, I didn't mind at all.
No, either did I. Well, I was going to say, so right now, Rhea is a face. Is Tiffany a face or is she a heel? I don't know which way you want to throw her.
I think she's a heel, and somehow they're going to try to turn and sorry, it cringes me to say this. I think they're going to turn Nia face.
Okay.
And then she's going to come out and say, I thought I could trust you. I thought I could trust you to not stab me in the back.
Because if Alexa comes back and say she wins the Royal Rumble and she comes out as the hinged Alexa Bliss, the one that she went in when she left, then you go after Rhea Ripley, which that would be cool because remember now, Rhea's kind of got that dark side to her too. So that would
be I think they were a tag team at one point.
And they may see that
Alexa and Rhea
to me to go that route. I think Nia will be with Tiffany Stratton for a while. And then, here's a real wild card. We're not talking about Bayley. She might fit into this title ring somewhere down the road too. I mean, at War Games, she was the first one out,
Wait. We're not talking about her. How about Naomi?
Yeah, there's another one.
How about Jade Cargill? You can go on and on. How about Bianca?
Because Bianca's been a champion before. You mentioned Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. We didn't talk about.
Here's another wild card. What about Roxanne Perez if she gets called up, and they throw her right into the title scene like they did with Paige?
Who's the bodyguard for?
Raquel.
Raquel, you've got. Who else is down there too? Is Shayna Baszler still in?
Yes, Shayna Baszler's still there. She's in PFC with Zoe Stark.
Okay. And
Sonya Deville.
Who's the current NXT Women's Champion right now?
Julia, who just beat Roxanne Perez last night.
Do you see her getting called up, Bud, to the main roster to be in the Rumble? I'm assuming they'll put some of those girls in the Rumble when it,
Yes, I'm gonna say there's probably gonna be at least 3 or 4 NXT people that get called up exclusively for the Rumble. You could look at Tony D'Angelo, Josh Briggs, Trick. Trick would be the most likely one for me that gets called up because he just lost his title.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
But now let's get to future feuds, and I again will let you have the honors of going first.
Well, I think I've talked about the three of them that I've had. I think we haven't seen the last of The Rock and Roman Reigns. I really think, like Alec mentioned earlier, there's something fishy about The Rock all of a sudden doing a 180. There's got to be some kind of something is going on in the back.
And yes, I'm going to say this. Yes, we understand The Rock is part of the board of directors of WWE.
Yes, he is.
And we understand he has a lot of gumption and a lot of push for whatever he wants to do. He has a 30% minority stake in TKO, which is the parent company of WWE.
Correct. I think I wouldn't be surprised if you do not see what was it, a bloodline match or whatever they did.
Yeah. Tribal
combat. I would
or bloodline rules.
I wouldn't be surprised to see a tribal combat match at WrestleMania between The Rock and Roman Reigns. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised.
To decide who the ultimate.
Well, you have the High Chief. So whoever the High Chief is. So you have the Tribal Chief and then the High Chief.
I think which is The Rock.
The Rock's right now. Was The Rock's granddad. I think that's
Peter Maivia.
Yeah, something like that down the road or back in the day. He was known as the High Chief. I wouldn't be surprised if there was something like that, Bud, at WrestleMania between Rock and right now it's interesting that, you know, Roman's been a heel for so long, right? Now they flipped him into face, and now he's finally getting what he wants. He's finally a fan favorite again. He wasn't for so long. They were booing him. And now,
even when he did the Tribal Chief.
And every time he comes out, now what do you hear? OTC. Because now he's a face. So he's getting the fanfare again, like he did when he was part of the Shield. He's getting
when he originally broke away from the Shield.
Right.
Before they tried to stuff it in our face.
Right.
And had him beat The Undertaker for absolutely zero reason.
Right.
Which
Lesnar had already ended the streak anyway, so it was already over anyway. But there's got to be something between those two, because again, we were supposed to see that match last year at WrestleMania. We didn't.
I've heard they might try to push it back to WrestleMania 43.
Okay.
To tell the story a little bit more, because I think, and this is not one of my feuds, but I think we're going to see Cody versus The Rock at Mania this year, if The Rock does Mania.
Yeah, we all know The Rock does have a movie career. We know that. I think they're currently filming the last Fast and Furious movie. I don't know.
They are, and he was also filming Moana 2.
And he runs the UFL that's starting in a couple weeks after the NFL season's over. He is the commissioner of that league. So he's going to have, places to be. And then again, like Alec just mentioned, he is one of the board members of the company, the sister company that runs the WWE. So, yeah, he's got a lot of...
He can leave and come back whenever he wants.
Correct. He's got a lot of out of the ring
priorities.
Thank you. He's got a lot of those going on, and so he, like you just said, he can come and go whenever he wants to. I think he wanted to be on, obviously, the first Netflix on Raw. Obviously, and I know Triple H is not cleared to wrestle anymore. I think he can't wrestle.
They said,
but it would be kind of cool to see him in The Rock one more time. Honestly.
Well, and before I get to my future foods, I'm going to say this. I saw Stone Cold was supposed to be on Raw too.
Was he not there?
they scrapped his segment for whatever reason.
Interesting. Okay.
And then this is the other thing I'm going to say before people keep saying, "Oh, Brock Lesnar's going to come back. Brock Lesnar's going to come back." I don't think he is, because I think he's part of the lawsuit.
Well, also too, the last time I saw an interview with him, he owns a lot of farmland in Canada, and he's enjoying being a farmer. If you guys don't know his history, before he became an NCAA wrestler for Minnesota, the Golden Gophers, he grew up on a farm. And he said that when he went to wrestle, he wanted to get away from farming. Now he wants to go back to farming. So I highly doubt we'll see him anytime in the future. But another guy that we're gonna see probably one more time is Goldberg. I don't know where, but we're gonna see him somewhere, because I think they said, I've been reading the headlines or whatever you want to call them, blogs, whatever you want to call them online, and he wants to come back and do one more match. Where, I don't know. Who, I don't know with. I have no idea. So
I've been hearing Gunther.
Okay.
But why? We saw him in his last match was in Saudi Arabia. Why? We don't need him.
No, I mean, I was a fan of his. Like I said, I grew up being a WCW fan, and him and Sting were my two guys in that production and that company. And I have his book. I read his book many times, but I think it's past him. Like it's past him. Sometimes you get to a point. Sting retired last year. The Undertaker stepped away. You get to a point where it's time to just hang the boots up and say, I'm done. I'm not doing this no more. I'll be there to announce or making a guest appearance here or there, but I'm not getting in the ring anymore. So I think it might be time for him to finally say that.
Okay, let me get to my future feuds. My first one, and this is one that hasn't started yet, but I think it will soon. Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton. Because what people don't forget is, even though everybody thinks Kevin Owens is right, and to some justification, I think he is, but I think he's taking it too far.
Okay.
As we saw on Raw when he tried the pile drive, was it Roman or Jay in the tribal combat match?
It was Roman Reigns. It was Roman, I think.
Yeah, he tried to pile drive Roman, and Cody came out. I think, and we know to never trust Randy Orton.
Nope, that's true. That's true.
Ask Edge what happens if you trust Randy. Ask the Authority. Ask anybody Randy Orton's been partners with.
They don't call him the assassin for nothing.
You mean the Viper?
The Viper, yeah.
They don't call him the Viper for nothing. I think that feud's going to start soon. And it's going to be for the title, because I don't think Cody's losing the title anytime soon. And I think Randy ends up winning that feud. Then you've got the obvious feud, and I think this one's going to happen at Mania, between Randy and KO.
Yep. I have that one down. That's one of the ones I had. Yep. I agree.
Something's fishy about KO. And KO, ask Sammy what happens if you trust Kevin Owens.
Yeah.
Go back to their NXT days.
Yep.
After Sammy won the NXT title, what did Kevin Owens do?
Stabbed him in the back.
Attacked him in the back and popped up powerbombed him on the apron. You don't think he'd be capable of doing something like that to... Oh, wait, he already has to Randy.
I was going to say.
banned move. So, and I think Randy ends up winning the feud. Then we got DIY versus the Street Profits. And I think DIY ends up winning the feud. But then we get another at Mania or down the road after the feud's over, we get a blow-off match where then you will have the Street Profits win the titles. And my personal favorite feud, Punk versus the Reign General, Gunther. And I think Punk is going to win the feud and the title. Because we've said at least 4 times now, this feud between Seth and CM Punk is just beginning.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way they're going to end it after one match. And I think we're going to see it at Mania, and it's going to be for the title. And Seth will, by that time, hopefully be a heel.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got Tiffany Stratton versus Roxanne Perez. And I think Roxanne, this is the first big feud on the main roster for Roxanne Perez. And I think Roxanne Perez wins this feud. And then you've got Rhea versus Naomi. Wait, no, I had that mixed up. Tiffany. No, I didn't. Rhea versus Naomi, because I think they end up moving Naomi back to Raw full time after we get Jade Cargill back.
Okay.
And I think Naomi beats Rhea for the title.
Okay.
And a bonus feud, because I feel like eventually we're going to get the Austin Theory face turn. I think they're just waiting for the perfect time to turn him face. And I think it's going to happen eventually. I know they put it off to the side. But I just can't see him not turning face this year. I think it happens within the first 6 months of the year. And I think that him and Grayson Waller, who's another person I don't care for, I think they have a feud.
Okay.
So, and then we are now going to briefly talk about who our favorite wrestlers are. They could be current day wrestlers. They could be from the past. And you could go first.
If you want to pick one, or if you want to do past and present,
and it could be an unlimited number. There's no top 10.
In the past, I would have to go Sting as my favorite. And when Sting became the Crow version, not the Sting that was the colorful blonde-haired kid, the one when he went dark and went the Crow with the black and white face paint and all that stuff, that was when he came out at Havoc against Hogan, when Hogan was Hollywood Hogan. I had to stop myself there. Hollywood Hogan. And the NWO was going on and all that stuff, the feud between those two. Goldberg, I mentioned earlier as one of my favorites. How can you not like The Undertaker? Dude, like I'm an Edge fan. I know he doesn't go by Edge anymore. He was one of my guys.
He goes by Cope.
I think him and Christian were one of the best tag teams ever.
Yep.
In WWE.
Which, funny enough, they're in the same company again.
Yes, they are. Yeah, they are. They are. Let's see. I'm trying to go through my list. I've always been a CM Punk fan. LA Knight has grown on me. I didn't really like him. He's grown on me now. I like Shinsuke Nakamura, even though I know
Sheamus.
Yeah, Sheamus will win the IC title hopefully this year, so he completes the title thing that he said.
So
every
he
title
finishes his story.
his story, correct. As far
Which
as
it feels like we say that a lot.
so often. Women, I mean, I can't go back. Trish and Lita, obviously. I think that was the best rivalry back in the day. Before China, after China had left the company.
Rest in peace, China.
Yes, rest in peace. And then I'm a Becky Lynch fan, always have been.
Yep.
I
noticed you didn't say Kurt Angle or John Cena.
Well, John Cena, yes. Kurt, and you can't hate Kurt Angle either. Kurt Angle, no.
His gimmick he had some of the funniest gimmicks.
The milk truck thing with the Alliance was beautiful. I watched that clip still to this day. It was JR. He goes,
Milk-O-Mania!
And he's spraying it out of the truck. He's throwing milk cartons at Austin and Stephanie and the rest of the Alliance in the ring. And because I know he did because Austin did the beer truck thing. We all know that.
Mm-hmm.
But you're thinking back to wrestlers that have passed away. Eddie Guerrero. You can't hate Eddie Guerrero either. I mean,
rest in peace, Eddie.
Rest in peace, Eddie. I would mention somebody else, but I don't want to say RIP to him because he was a-hole, and I'm not going to go there. I think you may know who I'm referring to.
Yep. Mm-hmm. We don't mention that name.
No, that name shouldn't be mentioned in any wrestling anything anytime soon. Yeah, I mean, currently Becky Lynch. I like AJ Lee. Those girls that are now trying to think of
what about the Usos?
The Usos, absolutely. Well, they were the tag team that kind of brought us into this generation now. Like they're the ones who took the torch from the Hardys, Edge and Christian, the Dudley Boys, teams like that.
Brothers of Destruction.
Yes, from the what was that generation called? What was that generation? Attitude Era. Thank you. That they were the ones who took tag team wrestling into what it is today, with the Street Profits and all the tag teams, DIY, all of them that are here today. They were the ones who set the standard.
NCMG.
Yeah,
Shelly and Sabin.
Who am I? Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, Hulk Hogan. I mean, you got to put Hogan in there too. Macho Man, obviously.
Stone Cold.
Yeah, The Rock. You can't leave the only one that I didn't like was Triple H. I like him now as more of a creative guy than I did as a wrestler. He played heel very well. Triple H played the heel.
Oh, him and Shawn Michaels.
Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid. Eric Bischoff. I watch his podcast every once in a while. And his song, I'm back. That. I mean, he was
when that hits, something's going down.
It happened on NXT a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, what's he doing in NXT? William
Regal.
Yeah, William Regal isn't he? He's working. He's a behind the scenes guy. I think he works at the
now he is
in Orlando.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you can't hate William Regal. Who is the commentator on SmackDown? Used to be a wrestler.
I'm afraid I've got some bad news. Wade Barrett.
You can't. Yeah, you got to put him in that category. Just going down the list of wrestlers who we haven't mentioned. Really, we could sit here for the next 7 hours and talk about everybody that we like. But I'll let you go, Bud. I mean, Name the ones.
Okay.
I mean, Cody Rhodes. I mean, Cody's dad was my mom's favorite wrestler. My mom will be gone 4 years in a week, 3 weeks from tomorrow. She'll be gone for 4 years, but she was a big American Dream fan. Loved him. Ric Flair. The list goes on and on. The list goes on and on.
Okay. I'm going to start. So, Dean Ambrose, before he left, I'm going to say this. They failed Dean Ambrose heel run.
True.
Big time. Big time. And that, you can thank that. You could put the thanks for that to Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
Yep.
That was all him.
I agree.
Because he knew that he wasn't going to be able to re-sign Dean Ambrose.
So get rid of him.
Ambrose, to get rid of him, he gave him that pathetic heel run. So Dean Ambrose, obviously, for me, is number one. Kurt Angle. John Cena, the doctor of... I liked his doctor of Thugonomics. One of the greatest feuds he had when he was the Doctor of Thugonomics was him and Kurt Angle when they had the rap battle.
That was the first match that John Cena was in was against Kurt Angle.
And he said, if anybody in that locker room is brave enough to come out and face me, do it. And sure enough, who was it? A young John Cena. And Kurt Angle's famous words were, "What is your talent?" And John Cena, and I quote, said, "Ruthless
aggression."
Yeah. And that kind of put Cena on the map. But like I said, the best feud for Kurt Angle and his whole time wrestling in WWE was the Cena feud, where they did the rap battle. I watched that clip on Rewind almost every day. Kurt Angle looked like I don't know what, I don't even know what the word is, but he looked like a fool. And John Cena just wiped the floor clean with him. And and Cena did that with all the other people he feuded with when he was the Doctor of Thugonomics.
Yep.
My favorite one was when he did that with Big Show.
Forget about him. Forget about the Big Show. We can't talk about him because he's in the other company. So,
and he doesn't even go by Big Show anymore. He goes by Paul White.
Paul White, yeah.
So John Cena's one.
Okay.
And I've always liked Cena, and I just don't get where people say, "Oh, Cena should have turned heel." No, that would have never worked.
Nope.
And there's one reason for that. No matter if you love or hate John Cena, he will always be over with the crowd.
Yep.
There's people that love Cena. There's people that hate him. I never once hated him. I always had nothing but love for Cena because all the stuff he does outside of WWE with Make-A-Wish.
I think he's the most requested athlete, ever.
The Undertaker. When that gong hits.
Yeah, scary. Goosebumps.
And I can say that because I've seen it in person at WrestleMania. I have literal goosebumps up and down both arms when that gong hit. Kane.
Mayor. He's the mayor now.
Mayor Glenn Jacobs of Knox County, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Tyrus. Well, he goes by Tyrus now, but Brodus Clay.
Okay.
And the whole thing he did with Naomi and Cameron. The Funkadactyls.
Yes. I remember
That
that.
was a dumb gimmick, but it was funny. It was a dumb gimmick that was funny. Dan, this is one we can say, even though he's over in the other company. Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, I mean that what was it? Was it the WrestleMania that was in New Orleans, right? And that's the one where he won. He beat Randy Orton, Triple H, and Batista all in the same night. Yeah, I remember watching that WrestleMania. I honestly, and I'm going to say this, and I don't care if someone rips me a new one. I was tears rolling out of my eyes when Daniel Bryan won that belt because
I was
he
too.
had gone through how much
Because me and my friends had talked about it at school the previous day. We're like, that Friday before WrestleMania, we talked about it. We're like, is Daniel Bryan going to win the title?
Mm-hmm.
And I was the only one that said yes.
Yeah.
My other 3 friends that watch wrestling said no. They're like, there's no way he beats Batista. And then you add on top of it, there's no way he beats Randy Orton. And there's no way he beats Triple H.
So, but I was at a watch party and I told them just what you just said. I said, Daniel's going to win both. And the guy's like, hey, put up $100. And I'm like, no, because you never know. You never know the way it's going to go. I could have walked out of there with $100 in my pocket because Daniel Bryan, and the guy's like, see, you could have walked out of here with money. And I'm like, yeah, but then I would have made the bet he would have lost to Batista. So that would have been my luck. But yeah, Daniel Bryan definitely.
Wade Barrett. Wade Barrett before he was in Nexus. Because I couldn't stand him when he was in Nexus. Him and Punk. But after Punk left Nexus, I'm like, okay, that's fine. I love Titus O'Neil. He's not a wrestler anymore. Now he's an ambassador for WWE.
Yep. Yeah, he's a local
he's
guy.
A Florida boy.
He's a Florida Gator, but he's a local boy. He pushed for the Super Bowl to be here. He was a big part of that when it was here when the Bucs won with Tom Brady in the first year after the COVID year.
Yep. The Rock, obviously. And it's not because of his in-ring skills. It's his work on the microphone.
One of the best.
And how he just eviscerates
people
on the mic. I sometimes, when I'm bored on YouTube, I just search up Rock insulting people on the microphone. My favorite one is when he had his feud with Cena. And he comes out and he's doing his little promo. And he says, you can't see me. You can't see me. I can see you with your Fruity Pebbles. Because you know how John Cena has all those
commercials.
Different color shirts.
Oh, yes, he does. Yes, that's right.
And The Rock, he used that as a part of his. That was one of the best feuds, honestly. And then obviously CM Punk. Chad Gable before he was in American Made. Alpha Academy.
Okay.
No, not Alpha Academy, but also American Alpha. That's what I was trying to think of with Jason Jordan and Chad Gable. That's what kind of put Gable on the map on the main roster, was his tag team with Jason Jordan before Jason Jordan had to get neck surgery. Which I feel like that group, that tag team, American Alpha, had a lot of potential. And again, another thing Vince failed. We could be here for all night talking about the amount of stuff Vince failed at when he was in charge.
Mm.
There's a laundry list of things we could talk about with Vince and what he failed at. I'm going to tell you the biggest thing he failed at was Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin had a lot of potential on the main roster, and Vince just dropped the ball. And
Mhm.
Baron Corbin was one of the first people in the modern era to lose the money, fail cash in at Money in the Bank.
Right.
And from there on out, you knew it was just he was going downhill. And that's the same thing with Austin Theory when they did the whole thing with him and Vince. Is they failed with that too because he came up as Austin Theory, and then they started doing the whole thing with Vince, and they took his first name away and just called him Theory.
Yeah.
And Vince, that's something Vince loved to do, which changed people's names. Like Chad Gable. Instead of calling him Chad Gable, he called him Shorty G.
Yep.
Or Pete Dunne. He changed it to Butch, which how can you not love R-Truth?
Yeah, there you go.
He is a national treasure.
R-Truth is he could be his own show. I mean, seriously, the guy could go out on a comedy tour and sell out every night because the man loses his mind. And I know it's an act. We all know it's an act, but loses his mind half the time. Well, wait a minute, that's who? Who did you say that was? So
Butch.
Yeah, Booker T. You got to mention Booker T down.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Booker T, Trish and Lita.
Yep.
Michelle McCool.
Okay.
If I had to say present day for women's wrestlers, I like Becky Lynch, Michin,
Asuka.
I don't really like Chelsea Green, but I feel like there's a lot of potential with Piper Niven. Yep. If they were to break her away from Chelsea.
Those two could be a future feud, bud. Those two could have a future feud.
Yes. I do like. I hated Tiffany Stratton when she was in NXT. Now it's Tiffany Stratton's growing on me. I like Tiffany Stratton. Carmella, which that's another one we never talked about, was Carmella.
Yeah.
I know she just recently had a kid with
he's a commentator on Raw.
Corey Graves.
He used to be a wrestler, Corey Graves. Yeah.
Before he had a neck injury. So I'm gonna say this. I liked Seth Rollins before he's probably going to, and I think we've talked about it now 5 times before he's going to turn heel, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
Seth, if you're watching this, please turn heel or bring back the Messiah gimmick, because I did like that gimmick, even though he had the eye for an eye match with one of my personal favorites, Rey Mysterio. Carlito, even though they're wasting him away right now.
In Judgment Day.
Yep, because he's doing nothing. Brock Lesnar. Not post Paul Heyman Brock Lesnar.
Pre.
Cowboy Brock. He did some of the most hilarious things as Cowboy Brock. Obviously Stone Cold.
That's another one where you get goosebumps when you hear the glass.
Yeah. Shawn Michaels.
Heartbreak Kid.
I saw a little bit of Sting, so I'm gonna say Sting. Um,
Bret Hart. Would you put Bret Hart up there?
Bret Hart, Jake the Snake Roberts, who speedy recovery because I just learned the other day that he's in the hospital.
I'm gonna say one back from the WCW days, Diamond Dallas Page. There's another one that he's got that DDP yoga that he does now that has helped a lot of wrestlers. So I give DDP a lot of credit. Yeah.
Yes, me too. Diamond Dallas Page, Edge and Christian.
Jeff Jarrett is another one we forget.
Double J.
Is he? He's on AEW though, right?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
And this is his final year, apparently, and he wants to go after the world title over on AEW.
Yeah.
Which I know we don't really talk about all that much, but maybe we could start talking about them a little bit. Because I do try to watch AEW every so often. So maybe we could throw that in.
If you want to do NXT, WWE, and AEW, but that's fine with me.
Yeah. Next week's show we can do all three. But yeah, Double J's going out and wants to be world champion over on AEW, which normally I would say for an old. Sorry if people get offended, but old people that are out of their prime in wrestling, I'm completely fine with Jeff Jarrett wanting to be AEW world champion. Now, I can't say the same thing for Christian because he is the holder of the contract that gives him an automatic title shot. I don't like this gimmick we are getting from Christian right now.
The other one, Bud, that I think is over his time, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, is Chris Jericho. He's another one that kind of past his time too.
Yeah, and he's in this little faction in AEW right now called the Learning Tree.
I will give him a lot of credit. I got to see him sing in his band.
He can Fozzy.
He can hold his own as a singer.
Yes. Wrestler.
I think he's past his.
And they're talking about once his contract with AEW is up, that he might come back to WWE to be put in the Hall of Fame.
I would agree with that. I can't see why he wouldn't be.
And same with Edge. Edge and Christian are both in the Hall of Fame already, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say both of them are already been inducted.
And then I'm going to throw Aleister Black in there, who's over at AEW now.
Aleister Black? Okay.
For the brief time that he was on the main roster in WWE, he was good. Buddy Matthews, which he was Buddy Murphy, and he was part of the whole Messiah gimmick with Seth Rollins during COVID, which to anybody who hasn't seen that, I recommend going back and watching. Look up Monday Night Messiah gimmick on YouTube. Some of the most interesting. It was the most interesting gimmick during the pandemic. But, and then here's another thing that Vince failed at. Retribution. It was supposed to be, how do I say it nicely? People that were cast aside. So Mustafa Ali, Raquel Rodriguez, and a bunch of other people. Oh, Dominik Dijakovic.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to be, he was.
Rusev?
Oh, yes, Rusev. I did not like him when he was with Lana, but after he broke away and did the whole Rusev Day gimmick, I Aiden English.
Aiden English, yep. There's another one.
Simon Gotch, which they were the vaudevillains, which I don't know if you could really say Vince ruined that. I don't think it got over with the fans as much as people wanted it to.
Mm-hmm.
The Ascension. That's another thing Vince ruined.
Yep.
But yeah, Chris Jericho Chris Jericho just needs to retire. I don't care for him. Oh, I like Matt Cardona. AKA formerly known as Zack Ryder.
Zack Ryder,
Which
yep.
he says if he ever comes back to WWE, he's going to go by Matt Cardona. Because Zack Ryder is.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Yep. And those are his words, not ours. If you want us, the full quote was, somebody asked him, if you ever go back to WWE, will you go back to using the name Zack Ryder? And he said, no. And I quote, no. The name Zack Ryder is buried. It is gone, never to be seen again.
Mm-hmm.
That's the nice way of putting it, because we can't use some of the words that he actually said. Which we're just gonna call them colorful.
There you go. Yep.
For a better use of profanity. But I think that's a wrap for the Wrestling is Awesome podcast tonight. We will see everybody back here tomorrow at the normal time of 5:45 for an episode of the 9 Innings podcast, where we will talk about all the off-season moves, signings that have happened in baseball.
And how the Rays on a 180 with the stadium.
Yep, we will mention that. We will talk about all of that on tomorrow's show. But for Bradley and Alec and the Wrestling is Awesome podcast, we are signing off. See everybody tomorrow at 5:45.